I enjoyed painting freight trains and rooftops and freeway spots in the middle of the night, drunk and high. I did. But there came a point where the drugs and alcohol overtook the art.
Yeah.
And art became secondary. And for me, when I'm not creating, I fall into depression. I don't feel like I'm my normal self. I always say being an artist is like having 5 different people living inside of me, and they're all shouting something at me. And it's which one to feed. And the drugs became my master. And, it's interesting because a lot of that happened in my early 20s.
Yeah.
By the time, I started drinking and drugging at the age of 12. By the time I was 14, I already done it all.
Yeah.
I was dealing dope. I grew up very poor, so dealing dope was my way out.
Yeah.
Or I should say that's the choice I made. My sisters, I have 2 older sisters. For the oldest one, it was education. She went on to Stanford and, she did what I would say the more logical direction of things to do to get out of that situation, which is through education. I chose the shortcut. And the shortcut for me was getting high and selling dope. So by the time I was 14, I was already dealing drugs full time. I was using drugs full time. I mean, you name it, I had done it. And then what I credit to helping me graduate high school was back then they had half day. I don't know if they still do.
Yeah, I had that too.
And I got into industrial cooperative training. So I learned a trade. I learned printing, silk screening. That's what I am by trade. I've been out of the business for a while, but let me back it up real quick. My first treatment, I was 14, just like because you said that. Back in the 80s when those insurance companies were taking that insurance
They're still
money.
doing it.
They're still doing it today.
Yeah.
The big epidemic. Yep. The big opiate epidemic, which is, which has been going on forever. It's just, now you got kids.
Yeah.
Suburban kids ODing. So anyway, that was my first exposure to recovery. And I didn't want nothing to do with it. I didn't want nothing to do with it, man. I was 2 years in, and you trying to tell me I got to stop? You crazy. I like getting high.
Yeah.
And so they kicked me out of treatment because I wouldn't conform to the rules, and I was back off to the races. And then in high school, when I was 16, I got my first legal job. And I thank God for that teacher, Mr. Harbor, because he believed in me. And there's a couple of teachers in my life that stand out to me that knew I was high, but still believed in me and told it to me straight. They didn't candy coat it. Like, look, here's your chance to do something different. Do you want it or not? I will always respect those teachers. And that gave me a structure, something to look forward to every day. Get up, go to school, go to work, make some money. I was still drinking and smoking herb and tripping and doing what I was doing, but, it gave me, my grades shot up. I went from C's and D's to honor roll. And so by the time I graduated in 91, I was National Honor Society, and I was focused. So after high school, I was going to go to college, but I was like, I'm going to work for a year. And, and during that year, I was doing graffiti. I got busted the first time for doing graffiti. And long story short, I wound up in the Bay Area. I followed my sisters out to California. By the time my sisters were in Palo Alto. And my oldest sister was in San Francisco. And I lived out there for 2 years. But when I came back to Austin in 1994, my friends that I had grown up with they had moved on to the hard stuff. A lot of them were freebasing, and some of them were into needles, but really it was freebasing. And I thought, man, why y'all smoking that stuff, man? Why you want to be a crackhead, man? Chicken head. And I didn't understand it. But long story short, by the time I was 21, 22, I was already addicted to cocaine. I started snorting it again, going downtown. And from 96 to 2006, a good decade, that was the beginning of the dark years of my using and drinking. Art, I had bouts of clean time, and immediately I would jump back into my art. But, getting clean can be difficult. And I think it was easy, more people would do it. But I thought I could beat the game, and so I'll go out there and give it another shot, and I'd get my butt kicked. I'd come crawling back in, lucky to make it back. And then finally, in March 21st, 2006, I hit a really bad bottom. The money was gone, the girl was gone. I was about to get evicted on a place I didn't even pay rent. I was miserable. And I gave up. And I couldn't get high anymore. I quit working.
Yeah.
And
that's the worst, man.
I tried to OD intentionally. And thank God I didn't succeed, but I came back to the rooms and I was angry. I didn't want to be there, but I had nowhere else to go. That started my journey once again, my 5th attempt to get clean in sobriety. And immediately I jumped back into my art because my art was always there. My art was always my sanity. That's what kept me sane. That was my release, my freedom. And I started the process of learning how to paint all over again clean. And that's what leads us back up to your question, the answer to your question.
Shit, man.
So, hell yeah, it was scary, man. I had to start all over. At 33 years old, I had to start all over. I've been painting, up time I've been doing graffiti for 16 years, and now I had to learn how to do it all over again. And tell you the truth, it made it interesting because there's no plateaus.
Yeah.
I'm always trying to paint to get better, to evolve, to, I'm never satisfied with what I paint. I mean, I have paintings I like, and I'm proud of, but to me, I'm only as good as my last piece. I have a history, I have a resume, but what am I doing today? That's kind of my philosophy on it. So I actually enjoy it, being clear-headed, producing art. I feel like when I'm in tune with that energy, like there's no telling what comes out.
Right.
My colors are brighter.
Yeah.
There's more, as opposed to being under the influence and producing art where the styles were more erratic and dark and kind of just a completely different energy, I found this guy I know took a picture of me in front of one of my pieces before I got clean, and my eyes were like black. You couldn't even see my pupils. It was black. There was like nothing in there, man. And I have dark eyes, but, today they're you can see a little more pupil.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it was interesting.
Yeah. Man, so, I mean, like for me, so it's so weird because, like, when you're an artist, there's that weird depth of yourself, like the fucking hate that you get into, or the euphoria, the like I'm God, the delusions of grandeur. Like that is the beauty. That like it's so fucking amazing as an artist to let go of that, to not have like heaven and hell, like you be the balance point. I mean, what a narcissistic thing. It's so crazy though, right? But I mean, to me, that's what it was. And then to learn all over again, because you said that, like you had to learn how to paint all over again. For me, it was fucking crazy. But here's the thing, man. I was like all into filmmaking when I was, 20, 22. When I was 27 or 8 or whatever, I forget, man. I actually shot a documentary that I never released, very similar to this. and worked as a light designer. Was very good at light design, all that sort of stuff. Got clean, and then started a business that was a whole different fucking great. Because man,
Yeah.
I mean, you've known me for a long time, and then I started like, you know what, man, I need to get back into filmmaking, all that sort of stuff, and you never lose it.
Yeah.
But because that transition point of, man, not fighting it so much, not having to be like, oh, this heaven and hell dude, that all bounced out in a recovery process that I did. Because of that, when I got back into art, it's like that. But dude, if I walked into that expression that I feel I have now, that clarity that I know the difference of, but if I was going through that while trying to that's insane. Because did you ever think like you lost it? Like you were dead?
Of course, I felt that, that was always a big concern of mine was if I get clean, what's going to happen to me?
Yeah.
Am I going to not have any more fun? My life was fun before I came in. It quit being fun in my high school years.
Yeah.
My 20s were very chaotic. While people were going to college and getting married and having kids, I was in my addiction.